And in 1970, aged 7, she won a nationwide young musician competition with the highest distinction ever given. This child prodigy has now developed into one of the most exciting of today's violinists. Last year, she was invited by the London Symphony Orchestra to perform at the Barbican Centre in a festival celebrating her virtuosity and versatility. We filmed her during this series of concerts and spoke to her at her home in Kitzbühel in Austria.
It's very hard to tell what really pushed me to music, because my surrounding was absolutely unmusical. There was nobody in the family who played either an instrument or was really interested in classical music. I think my interest might have been very much enhanced by recording of Menuhin. Because my eldest brother, he also started playing violin, and he recalls, he's 4 years older than I am, he recalls that he listened to a recording of Menuhin playing A major Mozart concerto, and that was the trigger for him to start playing violin. It might also have been my impulse, but I was too small, I can't remember that exactly. But the first concert I was at was in Basel, given by David Oistrakh, and he did Brahms sonatas, and that's something I will never forget. I was just 6 and had started playing violin myself, and his presence on stage, this enormous personality, and the hypnotic force he had, also as a human being, that's something which always remains in my brain. I did one competition just about 5 months after I started playing violin, which I won with first prize in some special whatever. And then, of course, people were interested looking at a small child playing violin. But thank God I was not pushed doing any concerts. I did about 2 or 3 little concerts for uncles or whoever was there to suffer. And then at age 10, I repeated the same competition with the same result. And during this period, my first teacher died. And I was about 9 months without a teacher. That was the moment of really kind of adult decision. Because during this period, I very strongly, for a second time, decided that I wanted to be a violinist. The story is, let's start with the first teacher. She was absolutely informal. I mean, she was fantastic for small children. I was there with her nearly every morning of the week for five days a week. And she had a lot of dogs and turtles and, you know, animals, whatever was there. I mean, it was incredible. And so I had second breakfast with her, and eventually we started to do some scales or some sevchik, whatever. She gave me a fantastic basic technique. And also the joy, she enhanced the joy in music, because during these 4 years in which I studied with her, I mainly played Chrysler and Sarasate and things like that.
Anne-Sophie Mutter's precocious talent was developed further by a key influence in her life, her second teacher, Aida Stucki.
Technisch kannte sie eigentlich nie Probleme. Das war immer ganz perfekt. Sie hat auch eine unwahrscheinliche Auffassungsgabe und Konzentrationsfähigkeit, so dass sie eben in kürzester Zeit alles realisieren konnte.
She had to really bring some style into my playing, and she also forced me to start to think myself and make interpretation, not just play, you know, as you feel, as you like, without any motivation, without any intellectual background. But I have been with her about 8 or 10 years, so it's really hard to, you know, to tell you within some minutes what I have learned from her. But basically it was the enormous enrichment of my sound colors, and of course the self-thinking.
In 1976, at the age of 13, Anne-Sophie Mutter was invited to Berlin to play for the great German conductor Herbert von Karajan, who later described her as the greatest young musical talent since Menuhin. The collaboration was to last for many years.
Vor allem diese ungeheure Fantasie, die sie hat, und wenn man das wirklich zu dem bringt, was es sein soll. Aber wissen Sie, ich war manchmal sprachlos, wie sie sich von einem Jahr zum anderen verändert. Es ist immer wieder besser, es ist sicherer geworden, es ist dann, und die letzten Jahre sind einfach, da kann man nicht Talent sagen, das ist einfach ein Genie auf der Geige.
I don't understand until now why he accepted working with me. But anyhow, we worked together for 13 years. And it's again something which very slowly enters your life, but it's constantly there. Of course, it was an enormous influence on my interpretation when I was young. That's no doubt. Because I had no experience at all, and not a very strong interpretation at the age of 13, 14, 15. Over the years, our relationship changed into, I would not say partnership, that would really be obnoxious, but because I have changed as musician over this very long period, that's half of my life I spent playing also with Meister von Karajan. And because of my contact with other musicians and other sorts of and other kinds of repertoire, I of course had built up my personality and had different views than he had, very strong different opinions. But we always agreed on main construction of the work. That means on the large line, on always looking at the violin concerto from also the conductor's point of view, looking at it as a complete whole score, not only as one voice. The best friend, I don't know, what I said is that it's the best part of my body. That's definitively the truth. And it's the extinction, as for every musician, the instrument is the extinction of my soul and my heart. This one is from 1710. That's the middle of the golden period, so the best time of Stradivari's life. And compared to the first Strad I have, this one has a much larger sound, and it also has this edge, this tiger, especially on the G string. Probably playing on a Stradivarius, on any old violin with an enormous character, which they all have, their own personality, is like trying to drive a Lamborghini. You have to be a very good driver to use that car. You need some time to get the key to the character of the violin, because every reaction time is very different. Every violin will react differently, and so you need really to adjust yourself before you can open up all the many colors you can produce then with this instrument. That takes years and years, and that's why I think that this Strad gets better, which probably is not the case, but I just know it better, and I know how to use it for what I want to express in music better. It was in private collection for about 40 years, but it was never played by real famous artists. And that's probably lucky, because he still is very healthy and he's not overworked. I will do that now in the next 20, 30 years.
1985, Anne-Sophie Mutter became the first holder of the chair of International Violin Studies at the Royal Academy of Music in London.
I decided to go to England because I felt that maybe England would be the place where, in Europe, where they needed a violinist the most. Germany, they have a lot of good teachers and other places. But England, I felt that the violin class really needed, some fresh blood.
She admitted herself she'd never taught, and I spoke to her about this as having had experience of international artists who have tried to teach. I said to her, of course, the basic problem with you, Anne-Sophie, must be that you're such a natural talent that you probably never faced some of the problems that our students face, and you may not know the way around them.
You cannot produce, because of good teachers, more great violinists. That's something which just is good luck. Because a part of playing and having been taught the right way, there are many, many other points which have to come together. Character and memory and God knows what nerve strength and just the addiction to music and the very strong will to always give your best, even if you're half dead the day of the concert. Nobody cares the moment you go on stage. You really have to give whatever you have. And, that's a very strange combination in a musician's personality. So that's at least the other half, a part of playing the instrument, is personality and circumstances which have to just fall into place in the right moment, and you have to make the best out of it.
She's utterly ruthless and demanding. She makes no concessions. When she first came, I wanted her to hear the whole range of performers, from the best we've got to the least successful. Now, the least successful, of course, are very good indeed, but I wanted her to get the feel of the problem. And I think initially she was somewhat shocked that we only had, what she said, something like 5 people of world-class solo potential. I was delighted to think that we got 5. I thought it was remarkable that we got 5. I thought if we had 1 in a generation, we're doing pretty well.
Sometimes I get a little sad about the fact that so many are only concerned about being soloist or big virtuoso. I would find it more natural if you just concentrate on loving music, playing it very well, doing just the best you can do with your gift. Because the other side would be, and that's the big risk, that teachers give their pupils too difficult things too early. And sometimes you also can spoil a musician by that, because stopping that habit and, going back to the basics in a certain age like 18, where many things have been missing earlier on, that is very difficult for a musician. So what's the most important thing, in my opinion, is that they very early start with a lot of technical studies and then just gradually build up their repertoire without any pushing, because they want to very early reach the point where they can play Tchaikovsky.
Particular, but that is not finished. And I'm not conducting fortism. You can't blame me. I'm very tidy here. And she's very tidy, and we play mezzo forte, and that's all that's the matter.
You can even in pianissimo answer.
It's too much.
It's a little too...
And excuse me, when I say don't play so loud, you don't react fast enough. Come on. Otherwise we'd have to say something, and saying something is so tedious. Let's do it. Such a beautiful piece, Whatever she does, even if it is a little bit over the top, is done with impeccable taste. The things that she did in the Tchaikovsky. Somebody else may play quite differently, but she does it with impeccable taste because she can actually do it, if you follow what I mean. She's not, she's driving herself to the edge, but she can still got control of the instrument.
make the impression that I go a little
Yeah,
forward.
that's what I thought helped me late.
And here, there should be one. Yeah, there's a little tendency to rush. I have hardly time to place my goulash there.
Okay.
Probably also, as you know.
It's much better now we made our speech.
Yes.
That little sounded.
Yeah, because otherwise it's really...
terrible. And you fight for nothing. No.
Yes, it doesn't make sense.
It's chamber music.
Yeah. You know, very easily if you compare a musician to a painter, you need a lot of different brushes and, of course, of colors. And you need diversity, you need contrasts. If you play César Franck or Tchaikovsky, to play just lyrically beautiful, that's not enough. A part of the fact that after 3 or 4 minutes you don't feel it anymore. The public doesn't feel what you want to express because there is no comparison, there is no depth behind, there is no other color to really make sure that this is lyric. So what you need also is the aggressiveness.
Please go on as quietly as possible. The horn solo.
In October 1990, Anne-Sophie Mutter gave the UK premiere of a piece written specially for her by the Swiss composer Norbert Moret. Her enthusiasm for contemporary music began, however, with her collaboration with the distinguished Polish composer Witold Lutosławski, who dedicated a number of pieces to her, including Partita and Chain 2.
2 or 3 days before the world premiere, I then met Lutosławski the first time and I played it for him, and fortunately I seem to have had the same ideas or the same feelings about his music. And that was for me a very lucky start. Through Lutosławski's writing, I have developed even larger space in between the piano and the real completely pale colors. Like if you take the last few bars of his third movement in the Chain 2, things like that, where he writes senza vibrato, but that was for me clear. But that's something which also for Mozart playing gives you just this kind of softness, this different kind of softness you need. And that's something which I could not get from within myself. I needed Lutoslawski's inspiration for it. And that was the beginning for my passion in contemporary music. And I then started to play Lutoslawski's work over and over again, and he orchestrated the partita for me. And then Norbert Moray appeared in my life. C'est assez difficile de jouer comme ça.
Oui. Mais tu le fais très bien. Si, en tout cas, pour moi, qui suis le compositeur, j'étais très content. Tu sais, je crois que c'est un rêve pour le compositeur d'avoir un interprète qui comprend si bien. C'est quelque chose.
With your interpretation, if you do a premiering, with your interpretation, you really set the standard, you set the mark, how it has to be played because of your contact with the composer, because you are the first one to play it. That's psychologically something which is very enriching.
Victor Hugo disait que l'important, c'était pas de lire les mots, c'était de trouver ce qui était caché sous les mots. C'est la même chose. Anne-Sophie a ce secret de pouvoir trouver ce qui est caché sous les notes. Tu sais, mais je voudrais quand même venir là, à cette mesure-là. Ça, c'est le chant du bonheur. Tu es seulement accompagné par le vibraphone qui joue pianissimo et les harmoniques des contrebasses qui jouent aussi pianissimo. Et c'est le point le plus intensif du mouvement. Et tout dépend de toi. C'est important, et c'est dans l'extrême aigu. Et c'est pas difficile, c'est pas facile de jouer des doubles notes comme ça. Parce que là, ça siffle tout de suite.
Tu as fait des choses très difficiles.
Oui, je sais.
Mon Dieu. If there something is just written impossible to play, then like Joachim did it with Brahms. So you can. That's what I also did with Moray. There's a part of the last movement where he writes like a commune cornemuse, which is this thing, this instrument mostly played on the street, and like that. And there's a passage in the last movement of Moray which should sound like that, and he wrote 3 strings, which would be. That is nearly impossible to play, especially if the speed is slow. Then it's very hard to keep all 3 strings together. So what I did now is giving one empty string to the first violin. And these are little composition, I would not say errors, but just things you have to change, and that's part of being in contact with the composer. Because it falls apart too early.
Excuse me. Right.
Usually in the middle.
Right. And I must write something else here. Tempo primo will be better.
And when we have the tempo change, are you following me or should I follow you? 164. Yeah. Do you hear where I am?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, exactly.
Just want to make sure.
With you then.
Yeah. Good.
Please, may we do 162? Excuse me. Yeah, that's very fast.
I don't think that contemporary music ever will have a large following audience, but I very strongly believe that if a musician or if a group of musicians plays a piece with conviction, and if it has a strong emotional message like Moya or Lutoslawski Dutilleux's music definitively has, then the public also will enjoy it in the sense of that they really have new experiences, new sound experiences, that it will enrich their life, at least partly.
She's very brave, and she should be supported in that she has taken the trouble to ask people to write things for her, so that she can be seen as a highly successful young soloist who is not only just there to play the standard repertoire and record it and so on and make as much money as possible. She's out there fighting for other things, which is new music, and in effect saying, don't be too narrow-minded. Just as you come to hear Brahms, you take in the Moya as well. And I think that is just terrific.
Some composers tend to make pieces which are very effectively sounding, very brilliantly sounding, but they get boring after 4 or 5 minutes because there's one climax after the other. You just get exhausted. You also need the quiet moments. And that's something Moya also is able to produce, these quiet moments.
Somebody who has such a superlative technique obviously enjoys the obstacles that a composer puts up in front of her. And Tchaikovsky has written a concerto bristling with difficulties of one kind or another, but she's completely on top of it.
Tchaikovsky, there are 2 elements. I would see two elements in there. The one which is the pure physical joy to play it. It's fantastically violinistically written. If you compare to, just technically spoken, to a Beethoven violin concerto, which is against the violin written. It's really written by a pianist. There's so many arpeggios, so many jumps, which are just against violinist's nature. Tchaikovsky is written, it just fits like a glove. It's incredible. So in this sense of the way, it's easy. Because once you have managed to deal with the technical aspects, it's easy in a sense of way that it just comes naturally. For me, it's a physical joy to play it, because you also have, for once, the excuse to just let yourself go and, you know, put all what you have, whatever. There is speed and emotion and just driving forward and backward. You have a lot of liberty there. take the theme of the second movement, which comes, I think, 4 times. And every time the orchestration is different. Either you have a dialogue with the winds, or you are only with strings together. You have to make something out of it. Otherwise, it could, because it's so simple, it could get boring. It could get, I would not say second-rate music, but you have to make something out of it. And that gives you the freedom to use all the different vibrato tools you have. And that's what I do with the second movement. There have been many great violinists which, I don't know, which I probably only can hear on very old recordings, and that never does justice to a musician, especially not with the technique we had 30, 40 years ago. Fritz Kreisler, on one hand. On the other hand, if you listen to his interpretation of his cadenza of the Beethoven violin concerto, you get a shock. You would not let your pupil on the street with technique like that. But that were different times. We are now much more perfect in a sense. But they had very strong personalities. And because the media was not involved in their career, the one who made it up to the stage was definitively also a strong musician. Yeah. Probably it's much too early to produce anyhow. You think the market already?
Today, of course, the media is involved in the marketing of classical musicians.
Yes.
The connection between playing and personal image has become an important consideration for every young artist.
You sure there's platinum?
Yes, platinum. That was the trouble with the other one. There wasn't any platinum on it.
There wasn't any platinum left in Switzerland? One of these extremely natural photos.
Everybody's sounding like soldiers.
This profession is not, shouldn't be connected with the word career, I think, because it's not a profession, it's just an essential need for somebody who has music as passion in his life. Nowadays, classical music is marketed. It has not been 40 years ago. 40 years ago, it was probably for pure enjoyment of only music lovers. Today, there are many different aspects in the world of music. There are social aspects. You go somewhere because you want to be seen, because the ticket is expensive, things like that, like Salzburg. On the other hand, Salzburg, at least what it was in the past, was a place where you really could get the best soloists, the best orchestras, and the best possible surrounding for optimal music making. But it, of course, always has two sides. You have people who love music, but you also have the ones who pay enormous amount of money, which you need to get such a festival, that come out of other reasons. I don't see any danger in that, but I see a danger in the fact that today, at least in a short-term range, it is possible to market an artist. I don't think that an artist who has no message, who has no personality, nothing really by himself to say about a composition, that he will survive on stage over a longer period. But it's sometimes sad to see that classical music is now used too much in the media just to make money. I'm very much for popularization of classical music, but there is a limit, and especially in the violinistic repertoire, there is just one or two pieces which are meant for a large audience, like Four Seasons Vivaldi, like most of the Baroque music. But other things like a Beethoven violin concerto, which takes up to 47 minutes, that is a piece where you need music lovers, people who understand the work, who take the time to sit down and listen to it. It's not a quick fix. It's not an aria of 5 minutes or a song of 3 minutes. It's something which requires a different kind of education also, different kind of public that you will not achieve by marketing methods they use today.
We can pick up on the fact that she is, in a way, a deluxe artist with who is the same age as a lot of people who are buying these crossover type of albums. She looks, she dresses well, and I think she has a very good chance, again, well marketed, in terms of coming across to those people without standing aloof.
By now, I can decide myself what I want to do. I mean, I'm not in a situation where I just desperately want to, get concerts or whatever and start my life. It's already there, and what happens today with marketing doesn't concern my personal life, because I'm strong enough to say no. The question now is, would be to put it the other way around. How would I feel, or how will I feel when I stop playing in the summer '91 for on stage? I mean, I want to do recordings and so on, hopefully practice a little bit, enlarge my repertoire for a change, do some contemporary music and chamber music, but anyhow, I will not go on stage for at least 8 or 10 months. So that will be very interesting, just to watch what other sides of my brain I can activate during this period. And I'm very much planning to, go more to galleries, to just have the luxury to drive or fly somewhere to see new exhibition, which you don't have. This time you just cannot spare with a crazy schedule. And I saw a risk in that, and that's the reason why I planned this sabbatical year already 5 years ago. I'm only concentrating on music since about 13 years. And that's not enough. On a long-term life, that's not enough. Also as a musician, you cannot always recreate yourself, even if we have contemporary composers and other musical friends and so on. You need to develop yourself also as a human being, because that will reflect in music. Otherwise you get the artificial flower. is a very important part of my life, and it's probably the language where I can express myself or whatever I have to express the best. English is definitely not the language in which I express myself the best. But what I have learned over the last few years is that music will not be the most important thing in my life anymore. I would never sacrifice my private life for music, because making one human being happy is more important than music. But anyhow, music will always be very, very important and necessary for me to live the contact with great art. That's the most beautiful profession you can have.
Descubre el espectáculo de la imaginación en el noticiario cultural 9:30, conducido por Miriam Moscona y José Gordon. Al finalizar, en el ciclo dedicado al cineasta español Carlos Saura, la película Mamá cumple 100 años.